It's the end of the day with Ray. Hello, my friends. Well, today I want to discuss Konica Minolta's first quarter. They published the results yesterday. Ladies and gentlemen, I put together this graphic and I want everybody to just kind of stare at this. It's pretty powerful. It's money spread across the table with blood all over it, and I'm asking the question, is Konica Minolta hemorrhaging cash? Because, ladies and gentlemen, they cannot continue to lose the kind of money they're losing. It's getting to be a point where I think a lot of logical people are questioning the ability for Konica Minolta to remain an ongoing concern without some serious changes. And as I look through these financials, I think it's more about what I don't see than what I actually see. Other than the glaring amount of money the company's losing. I want to go through the slide presentation that Konica puts together. And I added my notes on some of these slides. If you want to see the slide presentation in its original format, I strongly suggest you go to Konica Minolta's website and look at them. And while you're there, look at their past performances. Look at how they talk about the future of Konica in past quarterly reviews. Because quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, the talk isn't changing. But more importantly, the actions to fix the problem don't appear to be changing either. Making massive amounts of cuts, we all got to make cuts, right? It's time to make cuts. Interest rates, highest they've been in a long time. Fed just raised the rate 0.75% more here in the United States. The yen at its weakest point in decades. Ladies and gentlemen, growing your revenue because the yen's at its weakest point in decades is not necessarily a good thing, unless, of course, you can match the growth in revenue with a match of growth in profits. When I read through Konica Minolta's financials for their first quarter, it's a little bit disturbing. And I want to share what's so disturbing. And I'm hoping that not only the OEMs, but my dealer friends out there really start thinking about the storm that's coming. I've been talking about this stuff for a long time now, but it's here. The storm's on the shore. It's no longer at the horizon. You can overspec and oversell all you want, but if the customer can't afford the lease payment, guess what? You're not selling it. We got some issues that we have to deal with, and we're not going to deal with those issues by hiding behind a bunch of damn buzzwords and what I call nonsensical press releases that some folks like to do. We're only going to address these realities by facing them head on and making some really tough decisions. So without any further ado, let's jump on the Sharp Interactive board. And folks, the stuff's out there. Konica Minolta, first quarter, 2022. I want to start out by going back. So we know that Konica Minolta ended its fiscal year 2021 in a bit of a disaster. We also know that it ended its fiscal year 2020. Well, let's just call it another disaster. Those 2 years together were $286.5 million in loss. 24-month period of time. $286.5 million in loss. Folks, that equates to $12 million a month up until the first quarter of fiscal year 22. And how are we doing? We just come out of this total disaster of 2 years of $286.5 million in losses, $12,000 a month if you look at it monthly, and we're heading into the new year with an $81.7 million loss. $81.7 million. Folks, do the math on that. The first 3 months of fiscal year 22, Konica Minolta lost $27.2 million a month for a total of $81.7 million. Folks, I put together this slide. Again, I got the money with the blood all over it because I want it to impact you. This is big stuff, folks. This isn't just Ray, beating up Konica Minolta like some people will jump to the conclusion of. It's Ray beating up status quo. It's Ray beating up what he believes to be ineffective management and leadership. That's what this is. Folks, the first 3 months of 2022, 81.7 million or 27.2 a month. Look at it that way. In the last 27 months, Konica Minolta has lost 13.6 million a month for a total of $368.2 million. $368.2 million in losses over the last 27 months. And I don't see how they're going to get out of this. I mean, when you go through the slide presentation, it's just, there's nothing there that's convincing me that they're going to turn this thing around. I mean, folks, in order to have a goal, you have to set a projection. I've been beating up Konica Minolta in their projections for a long time. For many, many quarters. Why are they not adjusting their projections? Why are they not adjusting their projections? You remember me talking about that all the time? Well, folks, here they are again. $81.7 million in losses, and they're going to keep the 15 billion yen as their projection. They're not going to revise it. Let's do some math on how insane this is and how I believe they're never going to reach it. So they projected that they would do $15 billion in operating profit. The first quarter's a disaster. They lose $81.7 million. Well, let's do some math here real quick, folks. If you take this 15 billion yen and you put it in dollars, it's 111.6 million. If you lost 81.6 or 81.7 million in the first quarter, that means you got to change that 111.6 million to 193.3 million to hit your goal. Y'all can do math, right? 193.3 million is 64.4 million per quarter the last 3 quarters. So they got to go from losing 81.7 million a quarter to making 64.4 million per quarter. What are they thinking? It's impossible. They're not going to do it. I mean, who in their right mind believes that this is even attainable? Their goal was 29 million a quarter in operating profit. So they had this terrible loss of 81.7 million their first quarter. Now they got to do 64.4 million per quarter. I mean, look at this, folks. 64.4 billion. It's more than double what they thought they could do. And we all know what they thought they could do was way out there. It's like they're missing all the arrows. I call it fantasy targets. And they're putting the targets, they're trying to throw them on the board, and they're missing. And they continue to miss and continue to miss. Why don't they just admit it and talk about this in a reality? Let's talk about the print business. Because you know Konica has the industry business, the medical business, healthcare business. But let's talk about this workplace, digital workplace and professional print. In the digital workplace, the loss was 56.5 million. So the print piece of the business was 56.5 million losses of the 81.7 million. Here's a bright, shiny spot, but I'm going to ask a question about this shiny spot in a second. They're showing professional print as a 6.7 million profit. Professional print, 6.7 million profit. That's the industrial stuff, right? The embellishment equipment. So let's just jump in here and talk about this embellishment equipment. You know, Konica Minolta's got some pretty fancy equipment out there. No one can ever take away the fact that Konica Minolta, you know, doesn't make good stuff. I think they do make good stuff. And when I get closer to the end of this presentation, I'll share with you something they could do based on the fact that they make really good stuff. But folks, I got to ask a question. Was the profit in the professional print because you had a bunch of embellishment equipment laying around and it was written off to zero? You went out and sold it and declared all that as profit? I'm just asking the question. Because a lot of times in this big heavy-duty iron space, that could be an issue, especially over the last almost 3 years of a global pandemic. Where the unit placement's down, you were able to write this stuff off, so you went out in the marketplace, you just kind of shoveled it out there at really ridiculous prices, which would cause people to buy it, obviously. And of course, you could recognize a lot of profit if that was the scenario. I'm not saying that is the scenario, but when I look at the financials, when I look at the progression of Konica Minolta and the decisions they're making out there, I'm considering that could possibly be one. And the question would be, was cost eliminated through depreciation, creating paper profits over real losses. Because it seems to me it's the only place that's making any money. Why is that? And it would be interesting if Konica Minolta could have put more teeth into why that is. If they could have shared the revenue, if they could have shared the models of the equipment they were selling, and they could have told the whole world, this is why we're so excited about professional print business. You see how important it is to start dissecting some of these numbers at a much deeper level? This slide I thought was kind of interesting, and it says here, optimizing measures to accelerate improving profitability. For over 2 years, on the end of the day with Ray, I've been talking to Konica Minolta about sharing the all-covered numbers. Tell us what the hell you're doing in IT services and quit talking about hitting it out of the park. Well, obviously the ball's still in the park. Because in Konica's own words, improving efficiencies of processes and organization in sales and services with presumption of sales, scale after recovery, and implementing measures to improve the profitability of IT services. They're implementing measures to improve the profitability of IT services. So I have to ask, are they questioning profitability in IT services when we hear leaders saying how they're hitting it out of the park? Folks, isn't the future around IT services? I mean, that's what they say. That's what the whole industry says, right? But yet we still don't emphasize what we're doing successfully in IT services, and Konica themselves are saying they have to improve the profitability of IT services. Very, very interesting to me. Folks, the performance overview, and they talk about their achievements, they talk about things they did not achieve. I'm not going to read all this. I just want to talk about a couple of things. Brought forward recording one-time expenses for structural reforms, planned Q2 resulting in expanding the effect. And I'm going to say this, expanding the effect of losses. Folks, this is just a whole bunch to me of just nothing but buzzwords without any real direction or any real, it just doesn't give you any warm fuzzy that things are going to turn around because they got a plan. It's almost redundant stuff to what they've been saying for the last quarter after quarter after quarter. Things we did not achieve. I love it when people talk about the things they did not achieve and they forget to talk about their own inefficiencies. They make it about the COVID. Digital workplace delaying and shipping hardware, owing to Shanghai and localized lockdowns, catching up for the year. Here's what I'm going to ask you. Are you failing and maximizing IT services within print base? Because that's something they could have put in there. We have to do something to maximize the delivery of IT services in the print base, because that's why we bought it. That's why we invested this money so many years ago. Folks, you go through there and they'll talk about some of the DX. I'm so sick of hearing about the DX strategy. I just got to be honest with you, Konica. Saying the word DX means absolutely nothing to most of the people you say it to. And the workplace hub, I had to pause because, yeah, most people in the world are questioning what the hell that thing even is. But I'm reading this about the local government support, and you know, they got the GovNats received an order for 500 million yen, and I'm doing the math on 500 million yen, it's $3.7 million. So, you know, if you look at this as a whole, you're thinking, oh, this is kind of cool. They got an order for $3.7 million. But I would ask you, what did it cost you to deliver the $3.7 million? Because again, and Konica, you're not the only one, I guess, that does this, but not sharing the real life scenario with this. Who the hell cares if you build $3.7 million? I don't care if it was one customer, if it cost you 3.8 to do it. What's the cost of this? Why would the investor get excited about this if they think, well, that's great, Konica Minolta, you can add all the revenue you want, but I wish you would put some money to the bottom line. I wish you would put some money to the bottom line so you weren't bleeding cash and hemorrhaging it. Maybe we could share the realities of what that cost. But here's the reality, folks, around Konica. They're the worst at this, in my opinion. Okay? And I've talked about this quite a bit. They love talking about their awards. Awards. Who won this? Who won that? I got to be honest with you, Konica Minolta. People are getting tired of hearing how great you are when your bottom line is such a disaster. People are getting tired of hearing how great you are when the bottom line is a train wreck disaster. It's kind of meaningless, the awards. You know? Just like the awards they give all the kids in school just for showing up. Yeah, after a while, people are like, this is a meaningless award. People are saying that about you, Konica, not just me. They're saying these awards are absolutely meaningless unless you can prove you can actually make money. You know, they all have their presumptions. There's a page out there that talks about their presumptions. I'm not going to read it all. I put in red what I presume. I presume Konica will keep losing money without an aggressive strategy, and it needs to be aggressive, folks. My summation of Konica Minolta's first quarter for fiscal 22. No changes in Konica's unrealistic profit objectives is very, very concerning. It's very concerning. No discussion of needing to raise end-user prices is extremely concerning. I went through this whole thing, folks. They never once said they're going to raise end-user prices. If they did, I missed it. Konica Minolta put it in the comments. But this is crazy. You know? I've listened to some of these other folks, you know, and read through their quarterly statements, and they're talking about the need to raise prices at end-user level. This is a reality of life. But we don't see that in Konica Minolta's language, which is kind of concerning to me. Because for the many, many years, a lot of folks would see the OEMs, not just Konica, but out there just giving stuff away. We all complained about it. They're just giving stuff away, giving stuff away. Where's the profitability? How are they making any money? You got to raise the prices, folks. Why are we not talking about this? The whole industry should have raised prices like 25% a year and a half or 2 years ago. Across the board. Guess what would have happened? Had we raised prices 20 or 25% a couple of years ago, you know what would have happened? Well, we wouldn't be running around trying to do leases with people so they could wait for 6 months to get their equipment and all the stupid, insane things our industry did during its biggest supply chain crisis in history. We look like a bunch of idiots out there. Had we raised the prices, we would have had to figure out what else we were going to do in those accounts. Those that have positioned themselves to do other things in those accounts, and Konica Minolta, you're well positioned with all covered. You could have went in there and sold other services and other products. Just something to think about, folks, because we got to be able to raise prices. No clear description of implementing IT DX strategy. There's no clear description. You can just say in words all you want, we're going to increase our IT strategy. But without a real description of how you're going to do it, without putting some teeth into it and putting some teeth into the revenue and the profit numbers coming from it, it's just a bunch of buzzwords. How do I make money with DX strategy? How does an investor looking at your financials realize how you're going to make money with this DX strategy? It's extremely concerning. No details in all covered the flagship. I ask why. Why? It's very concerning. I mean, folks, you would think that this would be the opportunity for Konica Minolta to be bragging about all covered, this flagship IT services company they bought over a decade ago, and share the great success stories of it. Because, ladies and gentlemen, all you're doing over there at Konica is you're just kicking the can down the road and hoping no one really pays attention. Hoping the buzzwords can sell just a little bit more longer, right? Hoping the buzzwords can sell your, well, I'm just going to call it insanity just a little bit longer. I've noticed here, and I put this, I copied and pasted this off of their thing, but they talk down here, they say, make delivery processes for small customer projects more efficient by packaging solutions. Well, what, are you going to package up the IT and the copy machine, put in a box, you're going to get a FedEx delivery, here's your cybersecurity, here's your back. Folks, you see what happens when you have no clear directions? And see, you know, I told you the other day that as things get really tough in the financial world, there's going to be a little bit more scrutiny. The little bit more scrutiny is going to come from a whole lot more people than just the end of the day with Ray, I assure you. But they did do this. They have an outside director serving as chairman of the board for the first time. And folks, this is important. I agree with them. I think they need to shake that board up even more. And I'm glad that they're doing that. Because it's going to take some really outside thinking. And more importantly, it's going to take really bold action. And they're going to have to do some really brutal things. Because you can have the blood all over the money and hemorrhage your cash. Or you can have the blood all over that boardroom table and fix the problem. And quite honestly, companies out there are pretty reluctant to put the blood all over that board table. And the ones that do that usually can survive the biggest disruption in their industry's history. So ladies and gentlemen, let me just wrap this up real quick because I have some actions to consider. It's not just about how I believe Konica failed miserably in producing profit. Let's apply some actions to this. Bring in cleanup team. Current leadership probably too stagnant, and I truly believe this. Eliminate all direct operations and do it quickly. Konica Minolta, you can't do it all. You just have to make some tough decisions. Sell off all covered. I want everybody to remember this, especially at Konica. Remember CompuCon? Is all covered another CompuCon? Office Depot paid $1 billion, sold it for $305 million. Office Depot bought CompuCon because they thought that adding additional services into their customer base made sense. On the surface, it sure does make sense. But I'm starting to think that Konica Minolta has that same thinking. Let's go out and buy all covered. And it was, what was it, 17 assets under all covered? And because we could put all these things and all these other services into our existing customer. And now we're finding out over a decade later that's probably not going to happen the way we aspired it to. We all would agree with that, right? Maybe seriously consider dumping all of that. Konica Minolta's manufacturing equipment is all you keep in my world around the print piece. Get rid of it. Get rid of all the direct operations. Get rid of all your delivering to end users and focus on manufacturing the equipment that, by the way, you manufacture pretty damn good. I don't think anybody can take away your equipment. It's great stuff. Your production stuff, your roll stuff, you got some really good stuff out there. But if you focus on just being a manufacturer, maybe you could be a whole lot more profitable. You could align, with people that can distribute it to the end users and cut tremendous amounts of cost and stop the hemorrhaging of the cash. Here's the other thing I think. You either bankrupt out healthcare or liquidate its assets. Exit that market. That healthcare thing is not doing you any favors. It's just brutal. That was a lot of your impairment charges that you had last year. Get rid of that thing. Keep industry business. I look at that industry business, your lens business, that thing is phenomenal. It's phenomenal. It makes a great operating profit. I mean, could you imagine if you just had that and then you had your manufacturing of print equipment? Konica Minolta would be a player. Could be a player, but you can't do everything. The days of trying to do everything just ain't working. And manufacturers delivering products to end users is a slippery slope. And quite honestly, Konica, you slipped and fell. Without distractions from selling print and IT services to end users, along with the absolute drag on healthcare, Konica Minolta could thrive. I truly believe this. Continuing the current path, however, I believe is a painful walk to Konica's grave. Continuing on the same path, I truly believe, is a painful walk to your grave. Ladies and gentlemen, the bottom line is this. It's going to get tough, and we can't hemorrhage our cash. We're going to have to make some really tough decisions because everybody watching me knows this. Status quo is the killer of all that'll be invented. Don't get stuck in status quo, and I'll see y'all.